Hi guys and welcome. So this lesson today is all about looking how to get started with writing our compositions, which are our formal assessment for this term in stage 5. So this is a PowerPoint or a keynote rather that you've been given on Google Classroom. I'm just going to talk you through what it's all about. Okay, so if we have a look here, this first page here is a really excellent page. Basically what this has as all of the chords written out in C major in order: C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, and B diminished. And probably the most useful thing, I'm just going to jump out of that screen there, probably the most useful thing is that apart from having the numerals so we know what number it is within the key, is this down here, what its function is. Alright, so basically what this is telling us is that within the key of C, the role of a C major chord is to be the home chord. Alright, whenever it arrives at that chord, it sounds like it's reached the tonal center or the home of that chord progression. So you might want to put that, say, at the start of your chorus, or perhaps at the start of your verse, or basically you might spend a fair chunk of your song, the verse, using these other chords and not using it, so that when you do go to it, it really has impact. Now let's look at some of the other roles. That's the most important chord in our key, is the 1 chord, and this is in C major, but you could be doing this in any major key. It could be A major, G major, etc. The chords will be the same, different, but the role of each chord will be exactly the same. So the second most important chord is the 5 chord, the dominant, which is in C major, is a G. And if we look down here at the roll, it says goes to tonic. So what the 5 chord does is it leads us really, really strongly to the 1 chord, or so the G leads really strongly to the C. So if you were, say, for example, doing a verse and using a couple of chords and you hadn't gone to the C yet, in order to lead really strongly to the C, you might make the last chord before you hit the C a G, and that would really move there with some harmonic strength. Alright, so the 4 chord here says goes to dominant. It's another very important chord, but it could also lead us to the 1 chord. You know, it's not just 1 chord, but this one either leads us to the 5 chord or to the 1 chord. Okay. Then if we look at our 6 chord, it says goes to dominant, so that leads us to the 5 chord, and then there, so your chord progression might go A minor, goes to dominant, so that leads us to G, goes to tonic, so that leads us to C, so it might be A minor, G, and C. Now, these other ones here, they all say goes to dominant, so any of these chords can lead to the 5 chord, but predominantly the 5 chord or the 7 chord, but we tend to leave that out most of the time unless it's in jazz, because it has a kind of unusual harmony to it. So the 5 chord leads us back to 1. The other chords all lead us to the 5, though the 4 chord could also be used to go back to the 1. So it also says for all of them, fills in space between chords. So in other words, you might have, say, a G and an A minor, but you don't just want to have those two, so these are some different other color options, D minor, E minor, F, etc., that you could use. So if we move on to the next page, what this is here is some typical chord progressions that we find. Now, it's used Roman numerals here, 1, 4, 5. Now this is, the top line shows us what that chord progression would be in the key of C, and then the second one shows us what it would be in the key of D, D, G, A, third one is F, fourth one's G, fifth one's A. So the main rule when working with these chord progressions, because what we're going to do is we're going to pick one and use it for one section, then we're going to pick another and use it for another section. And the main thing to understand is that, generally speaking, if you start on a chord progression that's based around C, then if you pick this chord progression down here as your next one, you need to do the one that's based around C too. If you pick this one based around C, and then you jump down here and do this one based around A, for example, that's going to sound like a really weird change. It's going to sound like you've tried to mesh 2 songs together that don't fit together. Okay, so here's 2 examples here. Say I wanted my first chord progression, I might say I'm going to pick something that, yeah, let's pick this one here. I might go C, G, A minor, F. That's one of the most common chord progressions. So I go C, G, A minor, F, and I might repeat that 4 times for a verse. And then, as something different, I might use this one here, which flips the order of a couple of those chords and goes C, F, A minor, G. Now, so there are some options for you. Just this third page here presents the same options, but it uses a minor key. So this is, again, A minor and C are in essence the same key. It's called the relative minor of the C. So what you might want to do is pick a verse that uses a minor tonality. For example, you might go A minor, D minor, G. And then as we remember, the G is the 5 chord, even though it says 7 there, it's because it's relating to that one. But related to the C, it's a 5 chord, so you might go A minor, D minor, G, and you might repeat that 4 times. And then for your chorus, you might pick one of these ones that start on C, and you know it's going to lead there really well because the chord before the C was a G. So what I'd like you to do for today, guys, either just playing around on your instrument and recording on your phone just with video, or using GarageBand, I'd like you to have a go trying out a number of different chord progressions, and by the end of the lesson, I'd like you to have created 2 chord progressions that flow into each other. You could have picked 2 from this major page, or you might pick 1 from the minor and 1 from the major, or you might pick 2 from the minor if that's what you like. Remembering the key is if you start on the first line here, the A minor line, then anything else you pick here has to be on the first line as well. If you start on line 3 with a D minor, B flat and C, any of the other chord progressions you pick here have to be on the 3rd line here. And that actually applies over to the major one as well. Okay, so guys, I look forward to seeing what you come up with. We're coming up with 2 contrasting chord progressions that flow into each other, and we're going to make a rough recording of that because that is going to become part of your composition portfolio this term. Alright, I look forward to seeing what you come up with.